Chase, it is the time to put your pen or pencil down or stop typing whatever you've done this year.
Yeah.
Stop.
It's
Just stop.
It's the reason for the season.
The reason for the season is here. It is Game of the Year 2024 Top 10 edition at the Casual Hour. If you've never been a part of one of these, you're going to hear our individual list. We're going to use math, science, and maybe, I don't know, like maybe some arts and craft in there if we have to like get creative.
Yeah, sure.
To piece together what a list will look like. Chase, can you please do me a favor? How do you score a point system here? What does that look like?
So in the past, and it sounds like we're going to do this again, is that you have a list that goes 10-1, and
Correct.
I have a list that goes 10-1.
Correct.
Your 10th place game will get a single point. Your first place game will get 10 whole points, and then we can smash those two together once we know your 10 and my 10, and we'll just see. We'll see what happens. It's I mean, it worked the same when we had 3 people, but when you have 3 people, the numbers are bigger and change a little bit. So I'm interested to see what happens with just 2 people, if we're going to have some consensus options here, if we're going to be happy with those consensus, or if it's going to be like, oh, my 1 through 4 are really high because they were my 1 through 4, and the same for you, and then we just have a bunch of middle games that we kind of halfway agree on. And if that's the case, that's why we always leave that little finesse room to go well, are we really going to say our, just because it was number 10 for both of us, are we going to make that our number 1 game for the channel? Right. That feels wrong. So we can have that discussion if it comes to that, but I have a feeling, I was telling you this earlier today, I have a feeling that we've got 2 games that we're going to agree on that are going to be at the top. And then I think we're going to have another 2 games 1 tier down that we're going to agree on. Those are probably our 3 and 4. Maybe not individually, but when we come together, I feel like the top 2 are going to be the top 2. The next 2 are going to be the next 2. And then everything else after that is probably going to be, oh, hey, my number 1 was really high up, or your number 5 was, that gave it enough points.
Massage it in.
So we'll see if that actually plays out. I'll be pleasantly surprised if I'm wrong.
It's that clean.
But I've been kind of gaming this out in my head without knowing what your top 10 is. But I'm excited. I'm excited to get into it.
The other thing about this, the show's collective list cannot have a few things in it. We don't allow DLC because it's DLC. We don't typically
no
allow
Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree here.
Not at all.
Jeff Keighley.
We do allow remakes. I think that's fine. Remakes are allowed, and also if for Chase, who is typically a little bit behind with the Switch releases, if a game came out on PC, for example, and it came to the Switch in a year after it was released on, you've put those
I still
on
probably wouldn't
before.
count that. I mean, I feel like I could count that for my own list. I'd feel bad putting that on our collective list. And for remakes, I think we've talked about how it has to feel transformative in some way. Yeah. Even though we know that Paper Mario Thousand Year Door has a complete graphics overhaul, it's kind of just the same game, totally. Right? I'd feel bad putting that in our top 10, even though I had a fantastic time with that game. But it doesn't feel transformative in the same way that
last year you put a pack for Mario Kart 8. You had a release pack.
Yeah, totally.
Because your personal list, you can do DLC, you can do early access, you can do all that. It's your personal list, but that will not have a weight on the overall score for the show if we go that route. So
exactly,
that's kind of the lay of the land. This is episode 404. Nice round number here for the end of the year.
Our podcast is found though. It's right here. You're listening to it.
Yeah. We're here, 404. No losses except for feelings on this episode. We also have a couple of write-ins tonight. 2 friends of the show are going to be. They were kind enough to give us their top 5 games that you should play in 2024, and we'll break those down right now. And
Chase, we put 0 restrictions on their lists. Just hey, what'd you play? What'd you enjoy this year? Doesn't have to be a game from this year. It can be DLC. It could be whatever the hell you want. You could. They wanted to put a board game on there, they could. Neither of them did, but they could have. Yeah. So yeah, do you want me to? You want to read those, or you want me to read?
Why don't you kick it off here? Because I mean, while I consider these folks fine people and certainly friends, I would not know them if it wasn't for you. And
I have known them both longer, I suppose.
Yeah. Who are we talking about here?
Yeah. Well, let's start with Jiggy, one of
Sounds
our
great.
very good friends. He's shown up in chat a bunch. Been a big supporter of the show, of the channel, and of both of us. And I think
been on the show, streamed on the show, done lots on
absolutely,
the show.
yeah, fantastic human being or bird is sometimes a bird. So let's run down Jiggy's top 5. Number 5, Castlevania Legacy of Darkness. That's a game that came out in 1999, so just a little bit ago.
Just a little bit ago.
I believe Jiggy streamed this game, and that's why it's on here.
I think that sounds like something Jiggy would do. They're pretty into that.
Speaking of things that Jiggy streams, number 4, Front Mission 4 from 2004. Lots of 4s in there.
Good 4.
Number 3, Balatro. Hey, that's a game from this year.
That is a video game.
Number 2, Prince of Persia Warrior Within, that I know Jiggy streamed and did some fun thumbnail stuff.
Yeah, they put some swag on the thumbnail.
Yeah, like sports swag, very good stuff. Yeah, there's a Tumblr page. I think Jiggy reposts this a lot, or at least used to, as I remember seeing it. Like there's some account that's like Pokemon with sports gear on, and it's just like somebody's putting Baltimore Oriole hats on Charizard and shit like that, or a Pikachu with like a San Antonio Spurs jersey, and it's great. Like none of them are very good photoshops, but it's just fun to see that bullshit.
Hell yeah.
And I got reminded a lot seeing the thumbnails Jiggy would make for the Prince of Persia Warrior Within.
That's so
and his number 1, Jiggy's number 1 is Hell Divers 2. And we did have Jiggy. We did have Jiggy talk. We asked, for a little paragraph, why was your number 1 your number 1? So let me read that off now. I had a lot of fun with this game, mostly because it helped me get to know other people while I played it. The transition to full 3D has made this co-op shooter a dynamic and thrilling onslaught spent crushing the enemies of democracy across the galaxy. It might have been a quick flash in the pan experience for a few months, but the time I spent playing it with others who became some really good friends, I will treasure for a long time. You played some with Jiggy, didn't you?
A little bit.
Okay.
We, birds are on different schedules than us sometimes.
That's true. Yeah. East Coast time. It's tough.
Loon on the East Coast is a hard bird to get down, but we did play a few times, and I watched them play a little bit of this too. It was really fun, and I do not fault them for anything that they just said.
Yeah, seems like a good video game. I still never played it. I mentioned my reservations about the first game after playing it on Vita. I know this second game is a completely different video game.
Different.
But yeah, and then there was the weird stuff with Sony, and I just it just kind of passed me by. Yeah, I guess it is.
Like the whole.
Well, it's the best ongoing game though. It's it's ongoing, but it's also the best ongoing.
I think it's one of the most unforced fucking errors ever. By that, this game was so fucking high.
Yeah,
we'll talk about it.
And and Sony like needing a PR win and just going, nah, we're okay. What if we actually made this a big fiasco instead?
Forcing all their other fucking single player devs to try and make that, and they got it. They got it fucking effortlessly.
Yeah. Wild time. Why don't we move on to another good casual friend, and that is one Pierce Corshane, my co-host for Pilot Program.
Podcast with.
He's a wonderful person to do a podcast with.
Yeah,
and he's also a very good friend of the show. He's got some tiny kids, so it's a little tougher for him to show up in our chats and streams. But he's been in a few times.
Yeah.
Love Pierce. Went to college with him. Have a long history with Pierce. Bit of a hipster, so let's see if his hipsterness goes into
needle drop energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anthony,
I mentioned one time, I was like, you kind of look like Anthony Fantano, and he's like, I hear that a lot, and I don't get it. And it's like, I get it.
You look like him, and you come to your conclusions just like him.
You sound like him, you feel like him. Like if it quacks like a duck, if Jiggy's a loon, then Pierce is a duck. And Anthony. We love Pierce though, and we're going to read off his top 5 here. He has number 5, the Pokemon trading card game Pocket, which I know we've all It's a cool thing. It's a cool
I got
thing
another
for sure.
one of the scenic Mystic Island ones. So when I have it, you'll probably get it before training's on.
The Celebi,
Yep,
the cool
I got
Celebi.
2 of those now.
Nice. They need to get trading in there. They
I
just keep
know.
saying, "Oh, it's coming soon." It's like I have so many cards for Bobby. I know Bobby has some cards for me.
Yes.
We need to make it happen.
Yep.
Number 4 for Pierce, Night in the Woods. I'm sure that excites you, Bobby. You love that game.
I love that game so much. It's actually right there on the wall.
Yep.
It's on the fucking wall. That's how much I love it.
Yeah, solid game. Great art style, solid game. Number 3, Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. That's from this year.
It is from this year.
Number 2, Stardew Valley. I hear people like that video game.
You know, it's interesting too. Like I was a little surprised when I saw the list, but I was like, oh well, shit, they had the 1.6 patch this year.
Sure.
So
a lot of people went back.
A lot of people went back to it.
Yeah. And Pierce's number 1, he cheated a little bit. He picked UFO 50. That's 50 video games, Pierce. I feel like you have to choose just
one. At least
one.
he played it, Chase.
It's true. He did play it. Also, in his little blurb here, he does mention some specific games from UFO 50 that he really likes. So let me read this out.
Also, before you read that, is he the friend that's been giving you shit about not playing it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I kind of figured. Good. Thank you, Pierce.
Yeah, you and Pierce have done like a 1-2 punch of just making me feel bad and hoisting me on my own petard, and I deserve it. I deserve every bit of it.
Yes, you do.
But yeah, yep. Someday it'll come to the Switch, and then I'll play the hell out of it, and I'll go like, "Hey, did you guys know there was this video game?" And you'll both go, "Yes, we know." All right, let's read this off. The 50 games in one collection, years in the making. While each title in this collection may not be completely to your liking, all 50 have depth, should one of them pique your interest. And many of them will, especially if you're a fan of Derek Yu, who made Spelunky, or Ojiro Fumoto, who made Downwell, like I am. And I is Pierce. I mean, I like those games too, but this is Pierce. These are Pierce's words. My favorite games in the collection are, go figure, run-based titles. Magic Garden, Kick Club, and Sunset Drive I almost said Sunset Overdrive. That's a different video.
That would have been a very different mistake to me.
That's a much bigger game to probably be in the 50 collection. Sunset Drive would have caught my eye, even as standalone games. But the rest, the real joy of UFO 50 is when played as intended, as if you're plucking them off the shelf at a friend's house or at a game rental store. In other words, somewhat randomly, with an open mind. In other words, somewhat randomly, with an open mind. There you go. I can read words.
You did it.
The point-and-click horror game Night Manor is something I never would have normally played, but it gave me a few good jump scares in October. Pilot Quest and its idle progress kept me checking in day after day. Is that Mortal? Yeah, Mortal is a clever puzzle platformer with simple mechanics and some frustrating trial and error that nevertheless fueled me to competitively play it. And I've only named 10% of the games here. Even if you never play all 50 titles, UFO 50 is well worth your attention and money. The game was made by a group of developers with a clear vision. There are tiny, heartfelt details everywhere. How the first time you select a game, dust is blown off the cartridge, how each title comes with credits, how varying degrees of achievements will reward you with tiny sprites to populate your idle garden, or how your cartridge turns gold once the game is beaten and red when it's perfected. UFO 50 is a game with great reverence for games, giving the medium the respect and honor it deserves. Well, I told Pierce when he wrote that to me that excited me to play this game more than I had already wanted to play it. But it also pissed me off just a little bit because I've kept mostly a media blackout on UFO 50.
Yeah.
So hearing things like the games are somewhat connected in some way, or the stuff about the blowing off the dust of the cartridge. I'm like, I know those are little things, and again, I should have just played the video game, so I wouldn't be
to blame but yourself.
Exactly. I wouldn't be quote unquote spoiled by it. But hearing that, I'm like, damn, I kind of just wish I saw that in the moment. But also, holy shit, that sounds awesome. You know, I love that shit.
Dude, like, just for like a test, I would be curious. I might even just buy it for you, so you have to do it. Because I'm a dick like that.
Yeah, you are.
I know, like, really, not to go down the rabbit hole, you're not a huge fan of the Steam Deck. I think you appreciate it from a distance. You own one.
Yeah, I do.
I think
I'd
that
have to blow dust off that Steam
you
Deck.
would have. That's my point here.
Much like a cartridge in UFO 50, I would have to blow the
100%.
dust off that thing.
I think that's how you should play this.
Yeah, I know.
And I think that you could take it with you. It will play beautifully on that. And that could be something that you at least say, you know what, like I'm going to beat something on the Steam Deck. I'm going to take this and do it. You probably need to update it, of course, but I'm going to, I'm going to buy you that game.
Okay.
I'm going to buy you that game while we're
at least wait till like it's on like a Steam winter sale or something.
That's no fun.
But
I just want to say thanks to Jiggy and Pierce, not only for writing in, but just being kind of OG friends, fans of the show. They've definitely been there cheering us on.
They've been with us since we were an audio only podcast, which is feels like forever ago.
Both solid human beings, just lovely people, and we're very fortunate to know them here on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Chase, enough with this foreplay.
Fuck those people. Let's get into the real shit.
Let's get into the real shit. It is time for you and I to start going down our top 10s, and we're going to do this in order of 10 to 1. Traditionally, in the past, Chase will say something, I will say something, and we're going to keep that tradition alive because 'tis the season. So, Chase, you also, really quick, I guess we should have talked about this. We each have 5 bonus games, runner-ups.
Yeah.
Do you want to keep this top 10 and pull those up if we need to for our big list?
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably just mention them at the end anyway.
Okay.
But yes, I think we have like an extra 5 bonus games, our 11 through 15, which is really just there to maybe potentially break ties or go like, oh, that was my number 1. Where was it for you? It's like, oh, it actually was my number 11. So, I don't hate it. I think it was just nice when there's only 2 people here. We have fewer games total to talk about. So bring a couple more, see if they matter. And then, at the end, I always think it's fun. I honestly, I think most of the times for most of these lists, like the games you have between like 5 and 10 are the interesting ones. And then like 1 through 5 are like, these are just objectively good video games. So I like the idea of like, hey, we also have, if you want like the really deep shit, we got 11 through 15.
We got some deep cuts here tonight.
So we can bust those out if we need to, but we'll let's start with the top 10s.
Let's do it.
Who wants to go first?
You, please.
All right. Bobby, we already talked about this game a little bit, but my number 10 is the Pokemon TCG Pocket.
It's a great game. I'm having a lot more fun with that than I thought I would.
It pretty much was as soon as the game came out. I was like, oh well, this is just my number 10. I don't know what my number 9 is. I don't know what my number 11 is, but I know this will be 10. And part of it is the video game part is not necessarily my favorite thing. I've mentioned it a time or two on this show. I played through the Pokemon trading card game for the Game Boy Color in a series for my YouTube channel, and the mechanics of playing the Pokemon card game in that are much more true to the paper version. And this makes a lot of differences, a lot of subtle changes and not so subtle changes to the way the Pokemon card game is played in this game, in like this sphere of how the game works. Like you can only have 3 Pokemon on your bench instead of 5. You only have 3 prizes instead of 6. You don't even have prizes exactly. You just get points. So you're not drawing an extra card when you knock a Pokemon out. There's lots of little different stuff in there. And it's all driven to make the playing of the card game faster. So if you're on a bus, you can get these games done within, it's 5 minutes
the Marvel
instead of
Snap equivalent on like
how
you approach it.
And so I appreciate the changes that they've made to the card game for speed. It's just not my preferred way to play the Pokemon trading card game. And yet it's still a very accessible way to play the Pokemon trading card game. And especially when you pair it with the just the nostalgia hit that is ripping packs. You get these 2 free packs a day. There's lots of things that you can do in the game to get the currency to unlock more packs. You can pay for it. I haven't put a single dime in there. I know some other friends that I have also not put any money into it. I believe that. But like real people who spend their money wisely have not put any money in it.
I'm a real boy.
but yeah, you don't have to put money in it, and I think it's still a very cool time. Um,
You know what's sad,
there's
Chase?
yeah, what's up?
It's sad that Nintendo hasn't figured the code out to make kind of like a cardboard kings. But think about what they've done with like Mii's or what they've done with Animal Crossing and just the environment that you can like build a shop. They've got the perfect layout. You should be able to have in a game like this a card shop that people can come into, and you can have that whole sim aspect of Pokemon
That would
and
be cool.
pricing your cards out and having them like there's a layer here that you could do that nobody else can because you're Nintendo and you have this IP, but you could literally go from the battling people online to running a shop with the cards that you unpack here. Like it could be
Yeah.
really fun.
It's yeah, I mean it's this game I think is not the most well made in terms of the game stuff. I just talked about that. It's not the most well made in terms of the collecting. I think it's good, but there have been other games that I think have done it better. But it's just that it kind of works, and
Yes.
I think the thing that really charms me is just how not evil it is. Bobby, I still play Fire Emblem Heroes to this day, and I'll tell you, every other day they're like, "Hey, we found another way to get some money out of you."
Oh,
And Pokemon is like, "We'll take your money if you really want to give it to us, but like you really don't, and
it's
we're
very
not going to
chill.
push you to spend a dime here." And I haven't felt that pull to do so.
I mean,
And I
they
really
got the
appreciate that.
trappings
I
in
give
there,
it a lot
but
of
they don't
credit.
push them.
Yeah.
It's a
So
great game.
that is my number 10. The Pokemon trading card game Pocket. It's on mobile platforms, and it's good. Like
It's awesome.
if you want to play real ass Pokemon cards, there is another app that you can download and play the true Pokemon trading card game. But there is that game just kind of lacks the nostalgia hit
Sure.
and the simple fun of ripping packs and seeing cards and looking at art and making little decks and playing little games. And that is just so much more appealing to me generally. Also, they have a relatively robust single player mode,
Yeah.
which most of the other Pokemon trading card game things that I've played have like a solo thing that is basically a tutorial, and then it kicks you out, and it's like you can only play online now. And I hate playing online. I don't want to play against other people, and you don't have to in this one, and you can still have a really good time. So,
Right on.
Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket, my number 10.
My number 10 is Black Myth Wukong.
I'm surprised it's this low.
Well, this has been a banger year, Chase. But Black Myth Wukong really surprised me in a big way. I thought for sure this was a Souls like, and I think it's the Souls adjacent.
Mhm.
It's a lot faster, but there is just a really cool narrative underneath all the, obviously a classic piece of literature underneath all this, and a piece of literature that inspired one of the most revered animes of all time, apparently. But I found this game to just be incredibly rewarding, but not without challenge or flaw. But I think it made a lot of sense. The levels are set up in a way where you do have the shortcuts that would open up. Hey, you're not quite ready to do this part yet. Um, the upgrade paths for your character are really cool. The different stances you can put your character into, but just the epicness of it, the setting of it, the world you're in, I found incredibly interesting along every step. And there was an approachability and a quick ceiling with this game, and it does not hold your hand, but it also doesn't feel punitive. Like you're not going to walk around a corner and have a skeleton reach around a bridge and knock you off of it and do dumb shit. People aren't invading your world and trying to kill you when you're doing this. It's a straight up action uh fucking heavy action game. And one of the cooler parts of it is that you're collecting pieces along the way. So there's a Mega Man element because every time you beat a checkpoint boss, you either can turn into them completely for a limited time,
Oh,
or
okay.
yeah, it's really rad. So like there was the first person you fight, they have like a big fire staff and they have some really cool move sets, and you actually can turn into that person, get a whole new health bar with them and have their move set, and it's really fucking rad how they done it. Or you get like a piece of armor or a weapon from a boss, which feels very earned. It's got all the secret level shit. I haven't beaten this yet. It's not because I fell off of it or I didn't want to. I just felt like I had to play a bunch of other shit to stay on top of it. and Black Myth Wukong. Very cool game and very deserving of all the praise it's gotten this year.
Yeah, I know I said this when you talked about it for best moment or sequence, but I do just want to watch the Black Myth Wukong game movie at some point. So I got to go. I'm I'm reminding myself of that and just pulling up the YouTube video so I can come
How
back to
long
it
is it,
later.
by the way?
Let's see. This one that says Black Myth Wukong all cutscenes full game movie 4K Ultra HD is 4.5 hours long.
That
Here's
tracks.
another one
Yeah.
that's only 3 hours and 10 minutes long.
Hmm.
And here's another one that's 5 hours and 47 minutes
Well,
long.
I just
So,
wonder like what they consider full. If it's like, because there's definitely like hidden shit that you can get. Like there's complete bosses
yeah.
that you can miss in this game.
Like usually when you see like there are ones that where you see like, oh, it's just the cutscenes. Like we just cut all together all the cutscenes. Then you have the kind of game movies that are, we're going to play some of the sequences of, boss battles or something. If somebody's going to say something important in a boss battle, or you can see how the mechanic would have worked, and then we're going to cut to the end.
Yeah.
At YouTube, it's Wild West out there.
It's Wild West.
People should probably just play the video games, but I'm not going to do that. I'm gonna watch 4.5 hours of somebody else playing the video game.
Well, congrats to Black Myth from Bobby.
Yeah, very exciting
Number
game.
9,
very very
Chase.
big story. This
it is a
this
big
year.
story. Very big story.
My number 9, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. So this was a game I've been excited about for a long time. And it's really just because I thought it looked cool and because I respected the people who were part of it. And at one point, this was a Platinum Games joint, and then they kind of got kicked off the project or left the project or like did their part and then we're done.
Wow.
Games, the people who I think make all the Grand Blue Fantasy games, they worked on this the rest of the way or worked in tandem with Platinum at one point and then finished up the game. So Grand Blue is a pretty famous gacha game. And I have not played a single bit of Grand Blue. I have not played a bit of Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, the fighting game. Even though I've enjoyed watching Evo players play it, that kind of stuff. I did watch 1 or 2 episodes of the Grand Blue Fantasy anime and couldn't stand it. Wasn't a fan, but I still love the art style of this. I love some of the setting stuff that's in here, and I just wanted like a cool Platinum action game, and it turns out this absolutely is that. It was rad. It took a long time to get here. It got delayed a lot, but the game that came out was pretty damn good. There's a bunch of different characters in there. They all play very differently. You can switch characters on the fly. It's fun, and it's got some really cool moments in there too. I mentioned the Excavalian fight, which is that big Shadow of the Colossus style fight in a desert.
We were talking about that last night.
Yeah, which was super rad. I think the voice acting is really good. I think they got everybody from the game / the show / whatever. It still has that annoying little fucking dragon I hate, but it might be worse than Paimon. It might be worse than Paimon.
Oh, dude, that's
I know
things that we can't take back.
It's a toss up, man. They both suck a lot, but I still enjoyed a lot of the game and just ended up having a really good time with it. And there's some multiplayer components that I never got to really touch. But I could see that being a really cool game to basically what they made is a full action game with a full story and everything like that, and it plays well and it works well and it's great. And then they said, oh yeah, by the way, if you want to play this thing online, we also just kind of like made this Monster Hunter mode where you just bring in your characters and you go fight these big bosses, and there's time limits and you have to do multiple things in there. It's like, that seems like a big undertaking to make both of these kinds of games into one thing, and the Monster Hunter-y part just kind of feels like it's on the side, and I just kind of respect the hell out of it. I think they did something really cool here, and I don't think it got talked about much this year, so I wanted to shout it out, and it's my number 9.
Awesome, man. My number 9 is V Rising. V Rising is a game that I've talked at length about on here. It's been in early access for a period, and it's hard. Like, I really wrestled this year, Chase, with should I wait for 1.0 to throw
Yeah.
flowers at these games? And Hard Space Shipbreaker, Satisfactory, Tim, you certainly have V Rising now. These are games that like have been meaningful to me for some time, while not complete. I don't feel like Satisfactory added a whole bunch of shit this year, and V Rising did as well, but it just feels like almost like, hey, that game's been out. And
Yeah.
I say that as lovingly as I can. But
I mean, I'm sure you did, but I don't remember hearing you talk about playing V Rising a lot this year in the way that you did last year.
I mean, I was playing a shit. This was like one of my most played. I think it was my second most played game this year.
Really?
Let me double check Steam really quick. We got the Steam replay now, so we can keep me honest here. Actually, it might have been my number one played game this year. It was. I had 93 play. No, I'm sorry. Helldivers 2, then Pal World, then V Rising on Steam at least. So
I thought you were going to say Uncle Chop's Rocket Shop somehow, like within
getting
like
there.
a week and a half, it somehow took your number one.
But V Rising, man, it scratches all the right itches for me. It has a very cool base building. It has an incredible loop of getting blood power, going out, getting tiers to come back and upgrade your base with from beating bosses and taking them on. It's got
Oh, hang on. Sorry. Yes, okay. What game am I thinking of that also starts with V that you played a lot before that was in early
Valheim?
access? Valheim. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember you playing V. You played V Rising on a stream with Pierce at one point, right?
Totally.
Yeah, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, Pierce.
Never mind. Was thinking a totally different thing.
Well, Valheim, honestly, like I probably have more time in Valheim than this game, but they've been adding stuff to it. But I told myself I wouldn't go to that till 1.0 because I fucking lost myself in it. But V Rising is like a Diablo meets just a like base builder is the best way I can explain it. The combat is so good in this game. It feels remarkable. You have, I think, 7 or 8, maybe more different weapons. And you're a vampire and you can build a base for a lot of people, which I did. And we have a very cool mansion. It's just a beautiful game. It's fucking great. V Rising's fantastic. You should check it out. And I believe I might have missed all the details on it, but it looks like they're adding more stuff into it. And if you're a longtime gamer or just a fan of this series on Netflix, there's a bunch of Castlevania shit in the game, including Simon as the actual person that you have to fight. So very cool stuff there on V Rising for sure.
Very cool. I just opened up my Steam to see what my Steam replay is. You want to take a very sad guess at how many games I played this year?
I think you probably played 3 or 4 on Steam.
3 is the correct answer.
Yep. And I bet
but I did unlock 15 achievements, which is higher than the Steam median. So
Backlog,
I did
roulette,
I did something.
Well, you're gonna have the 4th game on there, but
well, here's the trick, Bobby. I actually have a lot of games on Steam. I just haven't played most of them.
Well, Chase, what is number 8?
My number 8 is Flock.
All right.
I think Flock was fun. It was just it was a good time. It was very chill. I love the art style. I love the world of just flying around. I got very frustrated after the credits, where there are some extremely rare drops of these birds that you could add to your collection, and despite being done with the game and having a great time with the part that I played, and you go online and you're like, okay, I just only have like a few species left to finish my flock decks or whatever the hell. And then I go, I've spent like 3 extra hours looking for one species, and I'm starting to hate this game. I need to stop playing. But the further I've gotten away from that, the more I just remember, man, what a great game. What a nice time.
It was a little vibes game, right?
Yeah, absolute. Yeah. All vibes, floating around, playing some songs, having your big flock homie group hanging out with you. I just loved it. I really did enjoy Flock quite a bit.
I didn't play it nearly as much as you did, but the bits that I did play I thought were really well done.
Yeah. Play it till the end and then stop right after credits. Don't worry about 100%.
Don't be a sicko.
Don't do it.
That's awesome. Congrats to Flock. Chase, my number 8 video game of 2024 is Stalker 2: Heart of Chernobyl. And I really fell for this game in a way I was not expecting at all. I've not played any other Stalker games. I didn't know really what Stalker was. I was like, hey, it's on Game Pass. I really was more involved with the story of making this game than I was actually like ever going to play it. And I felt like this, especially just given where things are at politically, I'm like, I really want to support these guys and check this thing out and just see what everybody's been excited about for all these years. And I think this is a phenomenal video game. Like, it's probably been the one that I've been playing pretty religiously since it came out. And I've got probably 40 hours into it. And I'm just like exploring out here, seeing a bunch of weird shit, doing a lot of weird shit. But if you're into a bit more of a grounded take on the Bethesda formula that runs well and plays well, and it feels evolved and it's like pushing boundaries on trust and just how you approach and do shit. Like, there's this whole thing where you had to get through a checkpoint, and it was like one of the first ones you come to, and like, I'm trying to clear into a new section of the zone. And there's this real hard ass that was like trying to shake me down for money and getting some shit. I'm like, I just like, money was so tight in this game, and you have to pay to have your gear like repaired. And I was like, I just got this gun that I got from a quest, but it's broken and I really want it. So I'm saving my money up. I did not think I need to pay this guy. I'm like, this is fucking stupid. And as I'm like literally staring at these choices, I'm like, how can I get past this? A fucking pack of dogs just come up and just take this camp out, and they get distracted by the dogs coming up to where like I just like run past them and go through the checkpoint fucking free. I go behind this tree line, let the dogs thin them down, start throwing some grenades in. I just went and got a bunch of extra guns to cash in. And it was just like these weird moments. And they just yesterday flipped on A Life, which is something that they've been known for, is just this very lived in AI world where people will be coming and going on the pass between zones and all this shit. And they might have their own fights that they're dealing with, and you can engage or wait and kind of be an opportunist. And that's been really rad. Like, I was running between places tonight, and a huge fight was happening over in this field, and there was a pack of fucking mutants that they were dealing with. So I just kind of like sat on the ledge, watched them, sniped a few people just to help out where I needed to. And once it was thin enough, went down and picked up my shit and was on the way. Stalker 2 is a wild ride, man. I haven't beat it yet. I think I'm pretty close to know where the story goes, and I'm finding that really interesting from a faction standpoint too. I think you would actually like this quite a bit.
I bet I would. I would. I know I've got issues with survival style games, but the sandbox elements that I hear about from you and other friends make this sound like a really cool thing. And
Yeah.
I've been intrigued by Stalker. I've respected it from a distance for a long time, but I've never quite played it myself. But I look at it and go, that seems like a cool video game. As somebody
It's
who
neat.
loves Fallout New Vegas, this game seems kind of like, yeah, but we'll give you like the harder shit if you
Oh
want
yeah,
it.
dude. Like, this is the heroin compared to the joint. That's that.
Yes.
But yeah, Stalker 2, Heart of Chernobyl. Check that out. It's very fucking cool. Game Pass also, if you have that service, you can play it there.
Very
That's number 8.
Yeah, my number 7 is Game Award Game of the Year, Astrobot.
All right.
Yeah. There was a time where this game was a lot higher on this list because it's just an incredibly well-made game. It plays phenomenally. You just have a great time. You usually have a smile on your face when you're playing it. As much as I cursed it, I actually ended up really loving that final challenge run to get the last
Oh yeah.
Astrobot guy on your planet. Much in the same way that Animal Well kind of did that. Oh, hey, there's this big fucking chase thing that I absolutely hate. But I got through it. And I was like, damn, that was pretty cool. And I felt the same way about Astro.
It's neat though, because there's this like the third Astrobot game.
Yeah.
And it feels like we've all been talking, like you and I have talked about for years. Astrobot's fucking rad. And it's like this year, it finally is like everybody's like, "Hey, did you know that Astrobot's rad?" We're like, "Yes, we've been telling you this. Like, this is what Sony should be focusing on," and it pays off here. I think you have one of the most like heartfelt, modern approaches to a platforming genre that I've ever experienced. And I know at the Game
Yeah.
Awards they even like they couldn't say Nintendo, but they basically said like the games that shaped us made this game, and it's very clear that when you play this, I think if you love Mario, you would love Astrobot. I don't think there's
Yeah.
I don't see why you wouldn't.
Yeah, and so yes, for all those reasons, it was a lot higher on this list for a long time. And then we've had this conversation a number of times. We had this a number of times during Game of the Year.
Yeah,
Um, I don't fault the developers at all, but I do fault Sony that you look at this game, you see the nostalgia trip, you see all these franchises that you feel something for. You see Parappa the Rapper, you see Vib Ribbon, you see a lot of stuff that you're just like, oh yeah, man, I remember those. Those games were great. They were so inventive and crazy, and it was such a cool time. And then you just think about what Sony's done lately, which is
right.
not much in the way of innovation, cool shit. It is a lot of big single player stuff. Your God of Wars, your Uncharted's, which are fine. Are fine. They're not necessarily my cup of tea, but they're fine. But they're all just so big and safe and boring. And I wish that they would do more with these franchises, or find
Well,
new
it's
franchise, like find new fun shit, and they don't as much anymore. In fact, they closed Japan Studio, the place that was making most of this cool shit for them.
yeah.
And it's a real bummer. And it ended up making me bummed out many of the times that I played it, and any of the times that I think about it and have these good vibes about, oh yeah, what a cool thing. It was cool to do that. Like, oh, remember the Ape Escape level? And then you go, oh yeah, remember Ape Escape? How they don't make those games anymore? That's and so I've had this real struggle going back and forth of loving it and being disappointed by it, and that's just kind of where it ends up, is a number 7. And I wish it was higher, but it's not, because I don't have this full throated excitement for it that I do for some of the other games that are on my list.
Well, Chase, my number seven's Astrobot as well.
Fuck yeah, there you go.
And so I don't think I feel as strongly as you do about the nostalgia and like the missing pieces. It certainly is there for me.
Yeah.
But I think it just kind of comes down to it's like it's a perfect game almost. Like it's such a fantastic execution on the genre. And it's so endearing and loving, and like I just enjoyed it. Like I needed Astrobot. It was just a very like brainless joy wave, like pure fucking dopamine when I played it, until you thought about some of the things that you did. I just played some things that like really had a bigger impact on me this year compared to this. And I don't know if it's because while it does some really cool shit in the genre, I also know how to like I knew how to do everything in this game. Like I knew
Hmm.
how to do everything in this game without it really teaching me. And it's that's not a bad thing at all. It's just it did not feel as fresh to me compared to some
Yeah,
other
it
stuff
didn't
this
it
year.
didn't challenge you exactly. I had the same
Yeah.
feeling. Like it
Yeah.
is it is like a perfectly made thing.
Yeah.
It is so well executed.
It's an iPhone.
And yeah, and when I say challenge, I don't mean, oh, I needed this game to be harder, because that's not what I'm talking about. They talk about how we wanted to make a game with kids in mind, and I think they accomplished that. And it's not
Absolutely.
it is not that it didn't challenge me in execution of that stuff, because like I mentioned, there's that final mission that is incredibly challenging, but it didn't challenge me intellectually, like
No.
kind of what you're mentioning, where some other games, they tickle your brain a little bit more, they excite you more in that way. And this was just like an incredible refinement of something that we are familiar with, and there is due credit in that, but it's
Yeah.
not going to get you to our game of the year
Well, I just wonder
for
also,
doing
man,
that.
like maybe you'll feel this way, especially with like a UFO 50, but is Astrobot more deserving to be where it's at here, and how much time I put into it compared to like a Lorelei and the Laser Eyes? Like
Mm.
So I think about those things too, where it's just like, yeah, Astrobot, the game of the year winner for the year, you know, like I played it because I needed to and I enjoyed it and it gave me peace and joy, which is what I want from a game, but it's also not the only thing I care about anymore. Like when I was younger, it was fun. It's like, oh, this is cool, this is hip, this is a neat thing, like Sonic was as well. Some of these other games, like my brain needs it. Like I want to explore, I want to go do these worlds, I want to meet these complex characters and do this shit. Like I want to feel things besides just pure happiness and joy. And so I feel like it's cool to have that because there's certainly other games, you know, like I look at Thank Goodness You're Here. Did it accomplish a similar approach for me on making me feel joy in a very non-traditional way? And
Yeah.
so like I'll let you know that's not in my top 10, but like I've struggled with like should it be? And I think about it did the very similar thing to my brain that this game did, but I had never quite played. I mean, you even said it when we looked at it, like you get to play this. Just look at what this looks like and you get to play that. So
Yeah.
I think that there's some things there that like I struggle with on this end of just the genre itself, but it's such a good one of these. Like it's maybe one of the best I've ever played when it comes to a platformer. And even in 2024 is being the best platformer ever, which it's not, but like in that conversation, I'm sure, is that enough? For me, probably not. For other people,
Yeah.
certainly.
I mean, you understand why it wins a Game of the Year
And
award
I
from
have
the
no
Game
issues with
Awards,
that at all.
and I don't necessarily, outside of my issues with Sony, but in terms of just, hey, it's a very good video game. It's deserving
Yeah.
of that thing. But also it's a crowd pleaser, like you're saying. Everybody is going to have like a baseline happiness playing this game. It's polished. It feels
Hmm.
great. It's just you're not going to have a bad time with it. So when you get an incredibly large amount of journalists and voices to come in and vote for Game of the Year, that one I think naturally is going to rise to the top in that way because everybody, I'm not saying that it wouldn't be anybody's number one, but I could see it being everybody's number four, or
Well, it's
everybody's number
also
three. And it just turns out when you can average something that high because it's just so well executed, that it just rises to that's the one we can all agree on. So that's the one we win,
if you
and
if
that's
you
fine.
were you said, "Hey Bobby, you got to take one game from your list to bring to a party that everybody would love. This is the game I'm bringing. This is the chips and dip. This is the fucking like."
This would be the second game I bring, but yes,
There's
I
one that
get you.
I know which one we would both bring. Like
Yeah.
that's the better one to bring. But
It
in this,
also deals with chips.
yes,
Maybe if you were maybe less dip,
yeah.
but more
But
chips.
I don't think that everybody at the party, like I don't think my nephew could right away get the game you're talking about. But I
Well,
think it'd
sure,
be
he's
good
not
for
old
us.
enough. He's not allowed to play that game.
Correct.
He's
He's a little
the
brat.
law will come and take it away from you.
But yeah, it's the game I
Yeah,
would bring as well. So my number seven,
yeah.
Astrobot, are the show's number seven for that
Our number
matter.
7. See, but
Yeah,
this is what I'm talking about. If Astrobot ends up being our number one just by way of, oh, it's the one we
I don't
both
think
agreed
it's
on,
number one
I don't
by,
think it will either. But that was kind of my point.
but
Like
I
if
do
it
think it's
bubbled
like,
up and was like, oh, it was both of our number sevens, and it just
yeah,
ended up getting
yeah.
enough points where it's our collective number one. Are we happy with that? My answer would be no. I would rather choose a game that you love more than me as our
Yeah,
representative
I
game
would
because
agree.
I feel like Astrobot's a little too um, generic in that way, and in a way that, again, appreciate the execution. It's on my top 10. It's my number 7.
Yeah.
I loved this video game,
Look,
but
there's
I
games that
don't.
it's way above on here that you know you've heard me talk. I mean, thank goodness you're here. Not on the top 10. You know I love that
Yeah,
game.
yeah.
So
I'm
seven's
shocked
high
that it's not
praise.
in your top 10.
I am too, but we'll get there.
Speaking of games that I'm shocked that are or are not on top 10s, my number 6, Bobby, is Metaphor Refantasio. Um,
I thought that'd be higher.
the highs are high, but Bobby, the lows are so low.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, folks, if you're hearing that, go back to episode 403. There's a
Yeah,
few.
I'm
There's a
I'm
few
not going to repeat it
sections.
all
Yeah,
here, even though I could
even
and
though you
say a
could.
lot more, but I'm not going to.
Okay.
Um, I love so much of what Metaphor is doing. I think it is mechanically the best Persona style video game Atlas has made. We love a lot of the characters. Hulkenberg, best new character of
Yeah.
2024 according to the Casual Hour. Um, I think a lot of the things that they put in there, from style to music to just UI building, I think a lot of that stuff is so smartly done and well made, and tickles my brain in those ways of, oh, okay, I can take the skill from this guy over here and I can put it on this class over here, and then I can try this and I can try that. It was one of my favorite. It wasn't exactly a moment, but like one of the things that I did was made this build with one of the characters, Heisme, where he had an ability called Third Eye, I think is what it's called. So anytime an enemy attacks him, there's a 50% chance it can just miss.
Oh, cool.
And then he's got another passive ability that you get much later in the game that says if an enemy misses, they lose all of their turns. Like all the turn pips that they would have, they just lose them. And then I put him into the Night class, which has an ability that says, look at me, I'm
Oh, yeah.
provoking you and I'm taking all the attention from the enemy, and so the enemies will target him. And so I use that throughout the
That's a
game, and
smart build.
especially even to the final boss, of just him going, I'm using the provoke skill, the boss attacks him, misses, and the boss loses out on all four of its turns, and you just get to go again. And I'm like, that is so cool. It is so cool how I built this thing in such a way.
Yeah.
There's another like late game boss that is a big dragon that shoots fire, and he has a move that happens like four turns in, where it's called burn down, and he just hits you all for 9999 damage and murders you. um but it's a fire ability, so if you have, you put on the right equipment, you get
Yeah.
a piece of equipment that repels fire. And you build some other stuff in such a way where he takes the attack and repels it right back to the dragon. Then the dragon does 10,000 damage to itself and
Holy
immediately
shit.
dies. And it's like, that's so fucking rad. I think there's so many things to like about this game. And then you get to the story, and the story fucking sucks. And I hated so much of what it was doing. Partially because I think some of the things that they start, or like some of the feelers they put out, some of the ways that they like build the foundation, I think, okay, I think you could build something really cool here. And then they
Yeah.
just decided to make the dumbest, least logical, most pointless story decisions they could ever make. And it angered me so much that I'm like, no, I can't. I don't feel good about you being my number one or two or three. And at six, I'm just like, I guess this is where you go, because man, do I respect the hell out of a lot of what you did, but you just piss me off so goddamn much, Metaphor. I can't love you as much as I want to.
Well, we'll talk about Metaphor more later on. But
Okay.
uh and I think there might be a similar situation here, because my number 6 game of the year is The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom.
Ooh.
And I really enjoyed a lot of this game very early on, but as it went on, I felt like maybe some of the charm of the echoes became a little bit more like, it didn't feel like I was exploring as much as I already just knew, like, plop this down, do this, and go here. And so the game is kind of its own victim in its length, and I think that the general rhythm, and it's like, not that like Zelda games aren't repetitive, because they certainly are, and that they all
Yeah.
have a formula that they follow, but I think that for me, going in, it's like, okay, there's going to be 3 cracks, I'm going to go in, I'm going to five these 5 things, I'm going to do this here. It's just like the entire time I was really holding out on the echoes being the kind of like differing factor of what made those feel unique. And while, hey, I'm in the mountains, I'm going to get more ice shit. Hey, I'm in the water, I'm going to get more water shit. And I'm not saying that to be like down hard on this game by any stretch, because I really, really enjoyed it. But in the scope of Zelda games, it's pretty low compared to some of the other ones that have like left a mark on me. But I'm very appreciative that it's here. I love that they took a risk on it and tried something completely new in the formula. And all in all, I had a blast with it. I just felt it lost some of what made it feel so special, because like the first few hours into this game, I'd say like first 10 hours of this game, not even 10, probably first 5, just like, holy shit, like I got this. I kind of had like that gotta catch them all going with it.
Yeah, the
I
discovery time.
totally. And I think even the map layout, like I loved kind of going back into what felt like a link to the past. I'm sorry. Yeah, a link to the past.
Hmm.
And that was really cool to revisit it with some of these abilities. But once I got some of those, like, I knew who was going out to fight, I knew who was going to fly. I knew who was going to swim. We talked about it last night. It was cool to have those things. I just felt like I was solving a lot of the same problems.
Hmm.
And that's why I put it where I did with 6 here.
Sounds good. Bobby, my number 5
We're
is
there. The top
Unicorn.
5, Chase.
Yeah, absolutely. And my number 5 is Unicorn Overlord. I had a blast with
Hot
this.
damn.
This is so cool. Vanillaware. I've loved a lot of Vanillaware games. 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim was a big fan of. I talk about Muramasa the Demon Blade more than any person should, but I think this game rules. I really do. It's got so many cool.
You beat it,
It's a
right?
turn-based strategy game. Do what?
Did you beat it, correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I did everything you could do in that video game.
Okay.
It's a turn-based strategy game, which is already kind of my genre of choice. And then I think they found some really innovative ways to expand on that, with this idea of making squads, and there's big turn order things that happen, and it's there's like a programming bit that I didn't fully understand. I mean, I understood it enough to beat the game and play it correctly, and if I saw it working, I could go, oh, that's how it works. I can see the
Sure.
matrix or whatever.
Sure.
But there is kind of this. I can this person takes priority, and then they shoot that thing, and then it debuffs the enemy that way, and this guy comes out and and he's got a thing on him that says, if an enemy is under the 58% HP, then you target that enemy and then attacks them, and when that enemy gets attacked, something else happens and they explode, and then that other thing over here happens, and there's just this clockwork ability to the game. There's this clockworkness feature, whatever, that's in the ether of this video game, and it just was so cool. I think the story is generic. It's not bad. It's just generic. The character designs are so rad, but the playing of the video game was so much fun, and I had such a fantastic time with it. It was. I'm surprised there are 4 other games that are above Unicorn Overlord on this list, but somehow there are. But Unicorn Overlord, my number 5.
I think it's probably fair, Chase, to say that might be one of the most underrated games of the year.
I think so. I have not. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of Game of the Year content from other outlets. I feel like this game kind of came and went on a lot of people's radars. And I'm interested to see what some other people put in their top 10s and if this makes the cut. I know it didn't come to PC, and that's probably going to hurt a lot of people. I know it hurt you as a person who was somewhat intrigued playing this game. Like, you played the demo and you thought, oh, there's something kind of cool there. But I think if this was on PC, you probably would have given it more of a shot. I don't know if you would have fallen in love with it, but I think you would have given it more of a shot. And maybe there are a lot of other people out there who feel the same way. I certainly wish Vanillaware would put more of their games on more platforms. But I think if anybody did play Unicorn Overlord, they got a really, really cool experience this year.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I think I will end up getting to that at some point in time. Chase, my number 5 game of the year is Uncle Chop's Rocket Shop.
It's too low.
It's too low. I mean, what a story. I think anybody who's been following the last few weeks has heard and seen this game's impact on me. But when I think about like why that's the case, for those of you who don't know, like automation, factory building, certain sim games, like I really like Power Wash Sim. I like the gas station sims, like that's all there with it. But you called it out at the top of the show, and it's something that's kind of stuck with me on this is a lot of Night in the Woods also. And like, I think the weirdness of that game and the characters that you meet in that game, and you'd have those offshoot little things that you would go and do, like, hey, we're going to go have knife fights with Greg. And some of the little weird mechanics like eating pizza and doing shit are very much how you solve and do things here. So yeah, it's Night in the Woods coded, but it's sci-fi and very weird. It's very blue collar in a way that I greatly appreciate. And it's so mysterious. Like it has layers in the way that like an Inscription would. And you think that you're just going to be running this kind of like greasy spoon diner coffee shop meets fix and refuel your trucks. But then all of a sudden you're taking contracts and you're a hitman, and you shouldn't be. And Wilbur gets warned not to do it. And then Wilbur gets hit, and like little dumb shit like that happens, and It just has layers and depth, and it's so fucking silly and effortless in how its humor is. And it's been a surprise, like maybe one of the biggest surprises I've had in a while, where a game just came out of nowhere and found a way to dig into my brain. And this, I've been playing it so much. I think I'm at like almost 30 hours now.
Yeah.
I do have a successful run, um, but the runs are different. And I think it's also a game that, like, you talk about like making fun of its own self a bit. Like, it makes fun of being a sim, it makes fun of being a run-based game. Like, it's very it's very self-aware without being like obnoxious about it. And I think it's just a very smart game. Like the design choices on how you repair and do things, the fucking guide that you have to thumb through and then getting pages added into it, and the little discoveries and nuances of like, I can cut a corner here by using fucking gnat blood instead of this to solve this problem. And you figure out how to get through it. And I think it also does a good job of, if you want to play this frantically, which if you do it that way, it's like I can do as many jobs as there's daylight. And so if you get good at it, which I think I could probably be pretty good at frantic mode now, because I can repair most shit without even referencing anything on how to do it. And I even got to a point now where like I know what shit breaks the most, and I'm going to keep in my locker that now repairs itself overnight. So I'm saving even more money the next day by using my own supply.
That, that was the coolest thing to me, was watching you play this game for a casual Monday, and I think you'd only played it for 3, 4, 5 hours, something like that. Not a whole lot.
Yeah.
And already at that point, you just had the demeanor of this like old pro. You were such an old hand at all this stuff.
Yeah.
And like a ship came down, and you're playing up the role a little bit for
Yeah.
sure for the stream, but at the same time you're taking like one look at this spaceship and you go, yeah, I think the oil's wrong on that. And you open it up and you're like, yep, I was right. It's off by a couple degrees. And then you go and it's like, I just need to put this in there and that in there and that in there, and then it's good. It's good to go. I knew it. I knew it. You hear it. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
it's there's this have you seen that fucking Dobbs commercial
Yeah. The
that they
hum.
play around here, where it's like one guy who like they keep turning on engines and he's just like got his eyes closed looking out to the road,
Yep.
and he's like, oh, that's a whatever engine, oh, that's a flat four, and he's just like naming off the engines just based on hearing the ignition turning. And for Dobbs, it's like, oh yeah, these guys are experts. They know every fucking thing about
Yeah.
cars. And I just felt that immediately with you of like,
Oh, dude.
yeah, I can tell you got a bad carburetor
Yeah,
over
it's a
there.
bad thing, man. You probably been ruined in the galaxy. But then like it just gets weird shit where there's like depth to it and a heart, and like you have this whole thing about humanity, and Druce is a god, but he knows that Wilbur needs care, and it's just, it's so nice. And I think I think the coffee shop might be purgatory. I don't quite know. It's hard to say. Who am I to even say? But I will tell you, Uncle Chop's Rocket Shop is such a fucking ride and a trip, and I would say it's probably the best game you don't know about in 2024.
It's the best story from 2024. And when I say
mean,
story, I don't mean the video game, although I'm sure the video game
Yeah.
has a good story in it. But the story of coming out so late in the year, stopping
like
the presses, it just charming you so much, it worming its way all the way up to year number 5 in a matter of a week and a half, 2 weeks. Incredible. Just incredible for this to just come out of nowhere and fucking 360 windmill slam into your top 10 is so fucking cool.
This is a very me thing, and like nobody else really gets to see a lot of it in here. You get to see a little bit behind me, but I'll let you know, Uncle Chops is going to make the wall in my office. And so,
yes, I would expect no less.
Uncle Chop will be on the wall.
Very cool. Bobby, it is time for my number 4.
Number friggin' 4. What do you got for me?
My number 4 is Balatro.
Okay.
Hey, that's a good video game. People should play Balatro, and it turns out many of you have.
But I mean, if I think for the greater good out there, Chase,
Yeah.
Balatro is the greater goods Uncle Chop's rocket shop for me. And
Okay,
and
sure.
I think the way that it just kind of came in, and you saw this with Game of the Year nomination, everybody's like, what the fuck's a Balatro? And then like, I love these videos. I don't know if you've seen any of this, where it's like people losing their shit about like, how could this be a Game of the Year? It's a card game. And then like a few days later, they're like, fuck Balatro, but not because because I can't stop playing it. And it's just like,
Sure.
the fucking change that happens with it. Was this the game that you were mentioning earlier when you said this is the game that you would show some, like, to bring to a party?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yes, it does have gambling theming to it in that it's a card game with that has real poker hands. It uses real playing cards. It's about playing hands to get chips. There is the thematics of gambling around it, but it is not a gambling video game. You
No.
don't put money into
No.
this video game. It's much less gambling than any sort of EA sports
Pokemon
loot
trading
boxy
card
bullshit game.
is more gambling
Totally.
than Balatro.
100%. And it's sad that Balatro's reach might be a little smaller because of ratings boards. I don't think the
100%.
US rating board, ESRB, I think ended up being fine. It was like 10 plus.
Yeah.
But Australia or Europe or stuff that has stricter views, and maybe also in this instance slightly like overstepping views on what counts as gambling and what doesn't, has limited some of the reach of this game, and I think that's sad. But on the other hand, this game has gotten so much attention and has been so huge in so many ways that I think it's definitely found its audience, which is most fucking people. It is so cool to play. Like, honestly, I don't want to say too much good stuff about it because you haven't mentioned it yet, so I have to imagine it's somewhere on your list. But also, I think the natural question for somebody to ask is like, why isn't it higher on your list, Chase? So I don't want to be mean to it, but I think it's mostly just that it's a game I didn't play that much this year. I watched some people play it. I watched you play it on Casual Mondays. I jumped in for a few runs myself. I beat it. I have a run that I beat on a Chase CK Plays recording that I made on my YouTube channel. And I think it's great. I just at some point very early on, I was like, this game's great. I get it. I love it. And I'm going to move on to other things. And I think that ended up being kind of a detriment to the game that I didn't get lost in the sauce like so many other people did. And that's why it just doesn't end up ranking as high for me as I'm sure it does for potentially you, and then certainly a lot of other people. I know it just won, like, the Indie Game Awards were it was a couple nights ago, I think, and it won both like best indie game and then something else for one of their other categories, but it won like the big award.
I think that you should buy it on your
great
iPad.
game.
I think you should put it on your iPad.
Probably. I will say I tried playing it on my Switch again, like earlier this week. Like, once I finished Metaphor, and it was finally free. I was like, I should play a little Balatro. And I do remember that the text is so tiny on a Switch, and it hurt my eyes. And I'm just like, I even had to move it to docked mode to play the rest of the big run that I was doing, which was awesome, by the way. Holy shit. I sent Bobby a video of it. I found like some cracked run that was very cool. But it did get to the point of like, my eyes just fucking hurt. I can't play this in handheld mode anymore. So also, I wonder if an iPad will help or hurt that.
It's easy on the iPad. It's so great on the iPad because you can just tap and hold on it. But also, you're just like using your finger to slide things around. Yeah, and like it just feels very fast and nimble. And I think like you're on your couch, maybe you got a ball game going on or something like that. You've got Balatro in your lap, and it's a game.
Yeah, I probably will end up grabbing that on iPad.
It's like a good evergreen game for that. But no, I understand where you're coming at with that for sure.
Yeah. So that's my number 4, Balatro. Very, very good game. One of the best games this year. Just wasn't, my top 3.
My number 4 is Metaphor ReFantazio, Chase.
You haven't even played this video game, Bobby.
I've played a lot of it. I did just get to
not 80 hours.
No, but
you haven't seen the shit. You haven't seen the shit, Bobby.
I just got down to like the Sea Harbor town. Um,
Okay.
so I just got down there.
Brylehaven.
Yep. But I knew right away, like there's a tinkering element to this game. Like I'm not playing it for the story. I don't give a shit. I checked out of the
That's
story a long
good.
time ago. Yeah, I think that's fair. But I absolutely love what they've done with the class system. I think it's brilliant, and I love how I'm unlocking like new parts of that through each relationship I deepen, and that stuff is like the shit that I loved in Persona is here enough for me where I'm just like, all right, this combat feels really fucking snappy. I love the style of it. My brain cannot help but fall in love with like, oh cool, I got this new gear. What does this one do? All right, I can build this out now. And I love that like my character, I can just on the fly switch between these different areas and it automatically equips the best gear I have available for that class onto them. I think that's super great. And I think it's dumb in the biggest and baddest ways. Like you have a fucking walking ship that's so silly and just like, oh, well, you can teleport now. Oh, well, why couldn't I? Of course I could with magic. And I think that like planning out my days this way, it's like, all right, I'm going to go do a bounty. I'm going to get these things. I'm going to pick up these quests. The fantasy element works really well for me. And I think that there's probably, I don't know, like maybe my brain just accepts a fantasy setting more than a high school classroom at almost 40 years old. And I don't know how much that weighs into it for me because I still love what I've played in Persona. But I think when you said it not yesterday, but on Wednesday, it's weird to have a non-Persona Atlas game be something I give a shit about. And like I've not really tried a whole lot of them, but I love anime, but I don't love anime. And I know anime, I just don't love it. And so you can ask me about it,
Okay.
but I won't tell you how I feel. And I think for this, like some of their games just feel pretty unapproachable. Like they seem pretty far-fetched and out there compared to like the Persona series. And I think it's cool that there's another one now that has had this much commercial success, which not saying the other games don't, but I don't see them being nominated for Game of the Year in a way that this has been. And I don't hear people talking about it in a way like it's a Persona game. But I had a really great time with it. I'm continuing to have a great time with it. And this is what I plan on using our much deserved time off of the show during the holiday. I'm going to be playing a lot of this on my ally.
Nice. Yeah, like one of the things you mentioned there, like it's not set in a high school, which for better or worse, and in a lot of ways it's better.
Yeah.
When you play a Persona game, you get a bunch of high schoolers on
Yep.
your party. Like it's a party of high schoolers. And in this game, most of the people are still around your same age, but you do get like an older guy, like a
Yeah.
couple older guys, and you get like there's more diversity to the party that you're making, and that feels good. And in a Persona game, and again, I love Persona, but you really only get to customize your own persona. Like you get
Yeah.
to switch out your own persona, your main character's persona, and then everybody else
Yep.
kind of has their basic one, and you can change a little bit about it, but you can't, like, they still have the same persona that they've got. And in this game, your archetypes, your classes that you can switch people into, you can switch anybody into any class, and there are only a few skills that are locked to your main character. But for the most part, you can build people the way you want to build
Yeah.
them, and you can find these fun synergies in there. And
Totally.
you get to really build a party that you feel like you had more of a hand in than a Persona game where it feels like you are experiencing the story they want to tell you.
Yeah.
Um,
This is like an RPG.
and again, the story they want to tell you in Persona is better than the story they want to tell you in Metaphor
Absolutely.
Fantasio. But I think there's so many great things about Metaphor, and I can't wait to see how they're able to implement the things that were successful into a Persona 6, if and when that ever happens.
Yeah.
Cool game.
So we are at the top 3, Chase. This is shit's getting real, as they say.
Yeah. Yes, it is. And what could be realer than my number 3, SteamWorld Heist 2.
Yeah.
SteamWorld Heist, the sequel to one of my favorite video games of all time, SteamWorld Heist, which I replayed SteamWorld Heist again on my YouTube channel this year, and I had a fucking blast with it. That game continues to still be one of my favorite games of all time. And this game, while not one of my favorite games of all time, is still really, really fucking
Did you
good.
beat this one?
I did. Oh yeah, I beat this one quick. I
Okay,
played the hell out of this, and I wrung it dry.
nice.
um, it's cool. I was a little worried there for a second because I liked SteamWorld Heist 1's setting of space, and I think you had more interesting weapons with a space theme, and I just dug the setting of that more. Whereas this one, it's on a planet. It's very pirate themed, and it's like I'm not really a pirate guy, I guess, but it's the video game that I like. So I like this developer. I liked almost all of their video games. Let's jump in. Let's see what it is. And mechanically, so good, so good and cool. I think they found lots of ways of making your characters more interesting. In a
The
similar
class
way to
building is
Metaphor,
really,
they
yeah.
found ways of like making more characters more customizable. Um, which to me cut a little both ways. I love that customizability, and I had the same feeling about Metaphor, but I also didn't really get a sense of the characters because they felt like they were um, kind of cookie cutter in that
Yeah,
because they were all blank slates, more or less. They don't look like blank slates. You got one that's like a giant robot woman who will fucking mess you up,
Rosie
boy.
rules,
But
man.
yeah, and she's great. I love Rosie, but also
Yeah,
you can put her into like the little sniper character.
yeah.
But she's also just like a big hulking robot who's doing the little stealthy stuff. And you go, well, that doesn't really make any fucking sense. Um, but but it's okay because mechanically, I think that game is really interesting. I think that the weapons that they have aren't quite as cool. I think you got a lot more fun legendary weapons
I would
in the
agree.
first game than you do
I would
from this
agree.
one, but still there's a bunch of really cool shit in here. And I think they made a fucking really good video game. I was really worried about the overworld stuff because you're in a ship and you're going around like a top down perspective, and I thought I'm gonna hate all of this shit, but
The
it
ship
turned
stuff
out
was
that
good. Yeah,
yeah, I think the ship combat was fun. It's not all that involved, but it is still involved enough to be mechanically interesting and doesn't feel like you're wasting your time doing it. But it's certainly not the reason you're playing the video game. And I liked that it wasn't the focus.
yeah.
You do a little fun thing over here, and then you get back into the side view turn-based missions is where that game really shines. And I think they did some great stuff with it. It's a cool thing. It has a fun story moment as well that did made me nostalgic for SteamWorld Heist 1. Um, and
That's
I
awesome.
think they continue to build a great foundation. If they ever wanted to make a SteamWorld Heist 3, I could see where they would go with it, and I would be excited to play it just like I am with this one.
Hell yeah,
SteamWorld
man.
Heist 2, my number 3.
It's really good. My number three chase is Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 is just, like Jiggy said, an incredible game. I think that it's probably the most fun I've had with a multiplayer game since Halo 2. It is just fucking
Wow,
insane.
all that time playing Destiny with you, and you're gonna do
I
me like that?
no, like I loved Destiny, but this
No,
is
I know, I know.
this is something crazy. Like the events, the unpredictability of it, the fucking Looney Tunesness of this game, but also just the fucking like over the top. You are just fighting for freedom against robots and now aliens on these like it was like Vietnam in space as much as like anybody would want, I suppose. I found it to be a blast with friends and just hanging out and doing dumb shit. It was, of course, a lot, and played with some people who played a little bit more serious than I did. And they would get mad whenever we would chase every shiny little object to shoot and get off trail. But the moments, the stratagems, the bombast of it, it's just absurd in the best ways possible. And I love the fucking look, the capes, the stratagems, like all that shit works so well here. And the good news is that there's some people I've ran into, and I'm hoping Jiggy can take me under their loon wing and let me play with a few people there. But uh, I am looking to hang out with some people and play this. There's a few folks from work that this has been what they've played all year. They've knocked on my door a lot, and I've been like, "Hey, you see me playing games? I'm trying to do stuff for the show. I do apologize." But I think I have some friends now that will let me hop in with them and get that zany experience, which will be great. So I'm looking forward to that too.
Very cool. Very cool. Well deserved.
Yes. Chase, what is your
Bobby,
number
are you ready?
two?
Yeah, you ready for my number two?
I think.
Okay. My number two is The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Bobby, you are fucking wrong. I had to
I'm
bite
not
my
wrong.
tongue the whole goddamn time you were talking.
I'm not.
Echoes of Wisdom is the best
around.
Zelda game they have made since Link Between Worlds.
You're wrong.
I know that includes little games like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom.
Wrong.
No. Get that shit out of here. This is the real Zelda, bitch.
No.
It's so good.
Real Zelda, but it's not the. Yeah.
I had an absolute blast with this. I am not a huge Zelda guy. I try lots of Zelda games. I don't finish them. I finished this one. By playing it a lot.
Yeah.
When you're saying that, oh yeah, hey, you get 5 hours where it's really cool and you're discovering stuff, and then it just kind of feels a little samey with some stuff, and I was like, no, I didn't get that, because I thought this game was fucking awesome from start to finish. I had such a great time stacking those echoes and finding new ways of puzzling out little things. I was so excited to play as Zelda and not have a sword and not have bombs at the ready, and having to
like, you were still Zelda.
You did, and I didn't like that. I didn't like when you could just push a button to kind of become Link for 20 seconds or whatever. I thought that was lame. But the idea that you're in a Zelda world, and now the things that you've played for decades of going, well, I would just slash that bush. I would just, use my lantern to set fire to that thing. I would just, all the things that Link easily does. I would throw my boomerang at that enemy and then go up and slash him because he's stunned now. And now you're playing with a different character with a completely different skill set. And you look at this thing that feels so familiar to you and you go, I have to rewrite my brain. I have to recontextualize the way I play this video game. Do what?
You do and you don't. And here's what I mean by that. Like, the things that would be impacted by fire still are. Your methodology of delivering that flame is different.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like I have to do this thing. How do I do this thing? I certainly can't do it like I would have done with Link. I have to find a new way of doing
boomerang
this.
To your point, like, you have to, like, do you have the elevation to do it? Do you have an item right now that can, like, hone in on it? Those types of things. Like, that element is, like, obviously very, very cool to me too. And this being my number 6 is not saying it's a bad game. Like, I agree
sure.
I agree,
but also you're wrong. This game is so fucking good.
I agree with you that, like, this is a very good video game. I like, if you don't know this about me, everybody, The Legend of Zelda is my favorite series of all time. I have a lot of it around me right now. It's even the fucking tree topper right there. Just a little bit. So I think that, like,
Hyrule poster, Deku tree.
Yes.
We can see there.
But I just felt this was maybe what I thought I wanted for a while, but then I realized I'm very spoiled right now by what I've been feasting on with Zelda. But do not let that diminish what you're saying, because I love that you actually are fighting me on a Zelda game, so I win.
I'm on the wrong side of the Zelda argument. What the fuck happened here? No, I get it. Like, but that's why I love this game. Is like, I love that it's a little puzzle box.
Yes.
And I had such a great time with it. Honestly, the only gripe I had with the game is that I had a New Year's resolution this year to play through A Link to the Past, a game I've never finished, despite finishing A Link Between Worlds and really liking it, and now finishing Echoes of Wisdom and really liking it. But I finished Echoes of Wisdom and was like, well, that was fantastic. I don't need to play another Zelda game for a while. And then I went, fuck, I'm never going to do that New Year's resolution this year, am I?
Well,
and who knows? Maybe I'll still find a way.
Though. Like, Carol Mertz posted her Nintendo Switch snapshot. I don't know if you saw that or not. This was number 1 on it, but then she would, like, put a little blurb, and she's like, you can't go back to Breath of the Wild after Tears of the Kingdom. And I just wonder, like, now that you've played A Link Between Worlds, now that you've played Echoes of Wisdom, what will A Link to the Past feel like for you?
I'll be honest. I'm worried. I'm
I
worried that I'll go and I was like, I don't know. It feels wrong. This it doesn't feel the same.
That's the thing.
Um,
I just want like I don't think I have this is weird to say, but like I don't really have a desire to play Breath of the Wild again. I would definitely play Tears of the Kingdom more.
yeah,
But
sure.
I think that like Tears of the Kingdom is the better of those. Like like if it's almost like why would you? Why wouldn't you play that over the other one? So anyway,
Yeah, yeah, I get you. It'll be difficult. I mean, I've played probably, I don't know, 50 hours of a link to the past, just over tiny bits and pieces over my
yeah,
entire life on a lot of different cartridges. Some of which had other people's previous saves on them, and I would go in. I was like, oh, they've got level 2 boomerang. Isn't that fucking awesome? I
yeah.
was like, I don't have level 2 boomerang in my playthrough because I haven't gotten that far yet. So you just play some stuff, but then you're super lost. Um, I I still plan. I still plan to do it. I will play A Link to the Past. It might be over Christmas break. Who knows?
Yeah,
But I will still play A Link to the Past. But yes, I am a little bit worried that I
I
love
would be too.
Echoes of Wisdom so much that it
I
might
would
have
be
ruined
too.
me for playing A Link to the Past. But what a game! What a
What
fucking video game!
it's way up there. Chase, my number 2 is Balatro. I adore this game. For those of you who don't know, here's a little bit even more history. Obviously, you can tell I like Zelda a whole lot, but growing up, the cards were what my family did. We played cards every time we could. We would cook food and play cards. Did not matter the holiday, the occasion, death, funeral, celebration, babies, cards, and food. And poker was kind of variations of poker is what my family would do. And there's just been something reflective on playing Balatro this year for me about just like thinking about my family and like I moved this year and didn't have the full setup at times. So I had my laptop and I could play Balatro on my laptop. And then obviously it came to phones later in the year. But Balatro was the thing I did between the things I didn't want to do. And I think that having a game that is just like a little comfort for me that while it's a zany fucking wild card game that kind of took the world by storm, it just made me think about my family. I thought about my family when I played Balatro. It's something that like obviously you and I did in the year where like the streams kind of were fucked up with the moves and the exiting of Johnny and just all that shit and having a game that like I knew if we were in a pinch we could just play Balatro felt like security, and it felt like something that made sense for the show that we ran. I obviously loved having you teach me strategy on it. I know at the time Johnny got to interview the dev on it, and that was a big deal for them, and I think that was cool. But I think from a game that like I've been telling people about in a way like I did with Super Hot. It was like, oh, you like first person shooters? Like, let me tell you about Super Hot. And it's like, oh, you know what a video game is? You'll like Balatro. And so,
Yeah,
like, do you know how to play poker? Cool. This is what this is. And I think it also just has that numbers going up. Like, it's fun and dumb in the best way. Like, some of these jokers are just silly, and as they should be. And I think that like having a run based game that you don't know what you're going to get, like you might get what you had where you're just feasting, or you might like not even hit your 300 chip blind the first time. Like it's so fucking weird. But I will tell you a very high, I didn't put it in like my top 3 moments because I didn't really, it felt generic, but it is significant when it happens. Your first win in Balatro special, when you finally beat it and you get that build that can just get you big numbers. You go from 300 to having to hit 100,000. And when you have 5 cards that can hit 100,000 and you could barely hit 300 at one point, that's fucking crazy how they built that into this. And you're playing the
yeah,
same, like you might have hit 300 playing 2 pair, and you might hit 100,000 and then some with 2 pair. It's fucking crazy how they do that in a run. And I think it is an evergreen game. As you mentioned, it's on the shelf for us. It's a game that I think means a lot to me and the show, and just it's really fucking cool. I got the physical cards ordered and I can't wait
oh
to get
nice.
those. Yeah.
Yeah. I almost put. I think I might have had it as a nominee. We just didn't talk about it. For Balatro, the best moment or sequence part that I had in there was when you beat when you get enough chips that you can beat the blind in one hand,
Yeah.
and the score catches fire. I just love the little fire
That could have been a
animation,
hit.
and
It's pretty
also when you
cool.
look at it, you go, oh, what hath I wrought?
Yeah. What did I do
I
here?
have become death,
Yeah.
destroyer of
Yes.
worlds.
Yes.
I'm so cool. It's so fucking awesome.
It's awesome.
Balattro's a really, really good time.
Yeah, man. It's awesome. Chase, this is it. The one for all the chips and Balatros.
It's true. I feel like you already know what it is based on the conversation we've had other days, and the other nominations that I've won, that I've given out. But my number one, with a bullet, and it could not be more literal. Children of the Sun.
I can't get it. I just can't believe it. I can't believe it, dude.
It's PC gamer over here,
I know.
playing this game
I
on
know.
Steam. It is my most played Steam game, being 3.7 hours played. Yeah,
That's fucking
I
awesome.
just I loved this thing from the moment I saw it. I just thought the look was so cool,
Oh yeah.
the attitude of it, the fucked upness. For whatever reason, intrigued me in a way that I'm usually not intrigued by that kind of stuff. But this just got me. The wanted style bullet bending, the sniper elite type of slow motion,
Sound of
follow
the
the
game.
bullet as it fucking murders somebody, the ping pongish nature of
The
bouncing from
sound of it
headshot to
too.
headshot.
The
Do what?
sound of the bullet.
Yeah, the sound is cool. Just the whole frightening, psychedelic, corrosive atmosphere that's around you. So fucking cool to me. I played this for 2 sessions in May and beat it in 2 sessions and haven't touched it again and don't want to. Apparently, it got a new endless game mode in November, late November. Couldn't care less. I'm sorry, couldn't care at all.
Yeah.
Not my thing. Totally do not want to play this. This is going to be my like Shadow of the Colossus moment, where it's like I want to preserve this in amber, the time that I had with this game, and I think going back to it would only disappoint me in a way. But
Did they
the
leave it
experience
in
that
a
I had
way
with
that would
Children of
like
the Sun.
does it have a pretty definitive end, or do you feel like they leave it open for more?
Oh no, it's you. I would say you definitively end somebody's motherfucking life, and you're
Oh,
fine. I
okay.
mean, if they wanted to make a second Children of the Sun and have a new character and a new setting, you could do that, and I bet it could be interesting, and I would probably play it. But this game was so cool to me. It took home like my moment or sequence of the year.
Yeah.
It's best debut indie game for me over Balatro. I think this game rules, and I'm so happy I played it, even though it was on a PC. But also, I don't think this game. Well, we mentioned it before. I don't think this game would work nearly as well on a controller, because you really do want that precision of a mouse for
100%.
this. But also, like, it's a slow mo first person video game, and it's less the twitchy COD stuff where you need that precision of the mouse to really
Yeah.
make the movements right, and it's more about, it's almost like a turn-based game in that way of, I'm slowing down, I'm being very precise in my movements, and you really do want a mouse for that type of control. Fantastic video game, loved it. Big fan.
That's awesome, man. I'm surprised and not surprised, but I'm surprised that it impacted you the way it did. I'm not surprised it's your number one.
Yeah, you're yes, you're not surprised at how surprised you are that it's my
Yes.
number one.
And the same probably goes for you. My number one is Satisfactory with a conveyor belt.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Satisfactory is the best one of these I've ever played. And honestly, I think it's kind of the game that like really triggered me into like realizing that like this is a genre that I just adore. And I know that it stands on the shoulders of other ones, but Satisfactory has had an incredible 1.0 journey. The commentary and the community around it, there is a style and a vibe and a lightness to this game. It feels so good. The movement in this game is better than it should be, by a long stretch. And the recent 1.0 editions of Alien Tech on top of all the other shit. And right now, like I haven't talked to you about this, but they've got their annual Fixmas going on where they have an actual advent calendar in the game. And so
Okay.
you get to open it every day and they have like resources and shit in there. And I think that if you are a fan of Portal, you would be a fan of this game. If you like building, because it kind of has that whole like, well, I mean, you get a bit of that in Knuckle Chops. You definitely have that in Hardspace Shipbreaker. But there was a point in my life where like I was playing the early access of Hardspace and Satisfactory kind of side by side, and it was a really remarkable experience. But I've talked a lot about this game. In one way, it feels weird to give it a Game of the Year #1 spot this year because I feel like it was that in a lot of years for me. But
Yeah, but it
I
was special to you.
yeah, this is a technical win for this one at this point in time. So that's the top 10 here, Chase. And I know you're doing math over there. We've got some honorable mentions to go over. How's the mathin'?
The math is mathing. I think I've got our top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
By the way, really quick before you say anything, you told me that you kind of thought that you thought you had tiers locked in. Mm-hmm. Were you right or wrong?
I was definitely right on 2 of them. Our top 2 are our top 2. That was going to be pretty easy. Our next 2 after that, there's one that's going to surprise me, or one that's yeah. I'll get there. Why don't you vamp a little bit more while I continue to do math?
Yeah. As Chase is vamping that out here, I think that one of the things about this year, and maybe it was just like with me moving or compared to other years, I think Chase and I even said to one another, I don't know if this year's going to have the hits like other years do. And I mean, last year had Tears of the Kingdom, which is, one of the best games, if not the best game I've ever played. People were still
It's not the best Zelda game I've ever played, but it's okay.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think that this year, when we started to like make this list, it became abundantly hard. And I have 15 games I'm looking at right now, and I think I could probably like pop a few of these in different spots and not be mad about how my list shakes out. But I was not like I think Chase, when did you stop? Like when were you locked in? Were you making any adjustments today on your structure?
Not today, but I think yesterday I did make a change to move Echoes of Wisdom up and Balatro down.
Yeah.
At one point, Balatro was my number 2, and I moved it down to number 4 and put SteamWorld and Zelda both higher than it.
Nice. Do you still need you want me to do some more talking?
No, I'm good. I've got 10 for us. Okay. But I do want to ask before we do this, because it might affect things slightly.
Yeah.
We did say we had 15s. Yep. Do we want to mention our 11 through 15s just to see if any of the games that are on there potentially would even affect that?
Number 15 for me is Dungeons of Hinterberg. Number 14 for me is SteamWorld Heist 2. Number 13 for me is Pacific Drive. Number 12 is Dragon's Dogma 2. And number 11 is Thank Goodness You're Here.
You know what? I'm surprised that Pacific Drive didn't make the 10. That feels like a game you talked about a lot and really liked.
I really do. I mean, I love Dragon's Dogma 2. I love SteamWorld. I love like all those games that are 11 through 15 are rock solid for me. I think that like, depending on the day, I could bump Zelda up a little bit. I think Astrobot could go up. Stalker. Like I think V-Rising and Black Myth are probably the ones I would move down and like others up. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it for sure.
Interesting. You're gonna notice somewhat of a theme through a couple of my 11 through 15s. My 15 is Metal Slug Tactics. My 14 is Arco, like 2 games that probably would be higher if I played more of them.
Yeah.
But I just didn't. They came a little bit too late, and I liked what I played, but I didn't play too much more. Animal Wells, my number 13. I'm
surprised that's not higher.
Yeah, at one point it was. It's just, it's not my genre, and as much as I
Yeah.
like it, some other games would beat it out a little bit. Like it could have probably easily been a number 10, but I just really liked
Do you think
Pokemon at number 10.
do you think UFO 50 could have beaten Children of the Sun?
No.
You don't
Nope.
think so?
Nope, not a chance. I don't know how much goes into UFO 50, obviously, but I think the highest it could possibly get is 2, maybe even 3. It might be hard to beat Zelda for me.
How far
Uh,
how far between your 1 and 2 are you? Like Zelda and Children of the Sun. Is that a close?
um, it's close, but I think Children of the Sun pretty easily clears it,
Okay.
and
Was
that
that
might just
always your number
be.
1? Was that it, like, for you when you played it?
It was, as I was building this list, it was always the one I was thinking like, yeah, that's probably my number one. And
Yeah.
then it was more that just every time I thought about it again, I would go, should Balatro go up here? And I was like, I could make a case for it, but like, no, 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 no. I think this is my number one. I mean,
My
you
top
mentioned it on Wednesday of like, oh, kind of, it might be kind of the hipstery choice. That's just kind of like you like to be that contrarian a little bit,
Yeah.
and that's true. That is true, and I do like to champion stuff that is smaller.
Yeah.
Um, but I think in this case, it really just was the best game I played this year.
Satisfactory,
Sorry. Anyway,
Balatro, and Helldivers were in their spots for most of the year for me.
yeah, I can see that. By the way, my number 12 was Neva, and my number 11 was Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Wow.
I played a lot of that video game and enjoyed quite a bit of it, but was also disappointed by a lot of it, and that's why I just couldn't, in
Yeah.
good faith, put it in my top
Yeah.
10. I did have it at 7 for a long time, just to be like, that'd be
Oh,
funny.
7,
And I was
7.
like, no,
Yeah.
it just doesn't. It doesn't deserve that
Yeah.
spot. It absolutely doesn't. So Bobby, with that, I think we're still gonna have some ties that we might want to discuss
Yeah.
a little bit. So why don't we do it this way? Our number 10 is a tie
Okay.
between Unicorn Overlord and Uncle Chop's Rocket Shop, and I would like to give you slash Uncle Chop
I,
its
dude,
flowers and put it at number 9.
you love Unicorn though. And
You love Uncle
I
Chop, and
do. I
I
do.
think Uncle Chop is hilarious.
All right.
I'm perfectly fine with Unicorn being number 10.
I mean, it is a
and,
good
Uncle Chop
representative
being-
of the show. I mean, it came from a monthly preview, for God's sake.
Yeah. So Unicorn 10, Uncle Chop 9. That then puts us. Well, we have technically a 3-way tie, but I am going to say we have a clear one of those that's higher. We have 3 with 8 points here. We've got Astrobot, which got 4 points for each of us for being our number 7s. You had Helldivers 2 in your position that got at 8 points, and I had SteamWorld Heist 2 that got at 8 points. SteamWorld Heist did show up in your
I would do
11 through
SteamWorld,
15.
I would do Astrobot, and then I would do Helldivers.
I like that. I think that makes sense. So that puts
Right?
Helldivers
Yeah,
at
that
number
feels
8.
good.
Yeah, Helldivers at number 8, Astro at number 7, and SteamWorld at number 6. We've got one final tie to talk
right.
about, and it's going to be difficult because it's both of our number 1s.
Okay.
So I'm fine just calling it a straight tie and saying our number 4 is a tie between Satisfactory and Children of the Sun.
I put Children of the Sun above it.
No, you come on. Your number 1 and my number 1. Like
Yeah.
that's a tie. That's a tie right there.
Okay.
So both of those can be number 4. And then let's see how we feel about this top 3. With 13 points, Metaphor ReFantazio is our number 3 video game of the year.
Okay.
Okay. With 14 points, our number 2 video game is The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom.
Okay.
And number 1 with 16 points, I couldn't imagine it being anything else, is Balatro.
That feels good. Zelda feels good. What if we put
Metaphor down a couple spots and
at
put our tie
5?
for number 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think that makes a
But
lot of sense to me.
if we don't want to have it be a tie,
I'm fine with it being a tie, Bobby.
okay.
So that puts Metaphor at 4,
Yep.
and then we have a tie for number 3.
Yep.
Or no, sorry, Metaphor at number 5.
Yep.
Metaphor at number 5, and a tie for number 3, Children of the Sun and Satisfactory. So let me read this again. Just make sure we're good with it. Our number 10 is Unicorn Overlord. Our number 9 is Uncle Chop's Rocket Shop. Our number 8 is Helldivers 2. Our number 7 is Astrobot. Number 6 is SteamWorld Heist 2. Number 5 is Metaphor Refantasio. Number 3 is a tie between Satisfactory and Children of the Sun. Our number 2 is The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. And our number 1, Balatro. I think
I
that's a
think
good list.
that's a really good. I think that feels very earned. And I think I felt for a while Balatro would be the show's number one.
Yeah.
Um,
I felt very strongly that hey, we both love Balatro,
yeah,
and I love this goddamn Zelda game, and then Bobby obviously does because he's a Zelda fan, which
yeah,
surprises me that he's number 6. Uh, I was like those two are easily are one
yeah,
and two. I
yeah,
I, I could not see it being anything else.
yep,
I thought that SteamWorld Heist 2. I thought you liked that game a little bit more than you did. But I thought SteamWorld Heist 2 and Astrobot would end up being our 3 and 4 somewhere, and they were
yeah,
close. They were
yeah,
close. Um, and then I wasn't sure after that. I thought,
yeah,
it's possible that a Metaphor could get up there. It's possible that you like Children of the Sun a little bit, maybe. Um, I thought there were lots of potential games, or just games that were really high on our individual list, like they were
yeah,
that might sneak up there somehow to be 5 and below that. But that
yeah,
is kind of what I thought. I thought for sure it was going to be Balatro, Zelda 1 and 2 in some form, some order, and then Astro and SteamWorld, and then the rest of it. But I'm happy with where we ended up. I think this was a
I am
solid
too,
list.
man.
Happy
This
to
was.
happy to put our names on it.
I think this has been a lot of fun. I know we were both a little nervous when the show changed this year on well, a lot of things, but Game of the Year, importantly, is
Yeah,
a big piece for it. And this felt
I
great.
do miss arguing.
Well,
I don't know if you know
thought
this about me.
I came out a little bit. I could tell you were chomping the bit with some Zelda stuff there, but I do like this is I enjoy this more, but like you also would go and do PvP shit more than I would. But I just feel like it is fun to argue. There is it always felt like I got to really tell a story to convince you guys sometimes on shit.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's that passion that I think, really shows that you care about something.
yeah,
Um, but at the same time, this was also really chill, and it felt
yeah.
like more of a celebration. It was really positive, except for your Zelda slander, you monster.
I don't know if we'll
um,
have a third chair in the future. I don't think that's super important for you and I, but maybe, you know.
Yeah, it's one. I would say it's not as important to us, and two, I don't think anyone could fill it. And I'm
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. Hey, we enjoy Johnny. We
Yep.
had a great time while he was here. But I'm not saying that he's irreplaceable. I'm saying that I don't think we could find a third person who would keep up our pace.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
we
for
we
what we
love
do.
Jiggy, we love Pierce, but they live in a different time zone, and two, especially Pierce, they have
Family.
kids and family and shit to do. I don't
Yep.
think they have the setup that we do to be able to do this week in and week out in the way we do. And if we don't find a third person who feels that same way, I think this works great,
It
and
does.
I was really heartened by this game of the year. Like you
Yeah.
said, we came in it with a little trepidation, thinking, "Is this just going to be boring? Is this just going to
Yeah.
be you listing some games and me listing some games and us going, well, I guess that was it." And the answer is no. I think we were still
Yeah.
able to bring out some of that passion. We were able to have those conversations, and we each got the floor to talk about our games and came up with some really cool ones. I was very pleased with where we ended up on this, and I'm happy to keep doing this with you, buddy.
Man,
This is
this is
fantastic.
great. We've got some cool stuff planned for the next year. I think that we're going to be more or less the same of what you've been listening to, but the streams might change a little bit. Mondays are locked in. I might move Fridays to the morning time. I'm not quite sure yet. I typically don't work on Fridays right now, and I could easily pop in and do some like morning streams. And I'm considering doing something called Factory Fridays, where I just work on my Satisfactory build that I've got going right now and see where that goes.
Man, it's
but
like you like that video game or something.
I do like that game. But we got some fun stuff planned there. I think obviously we've got friends of the show that want to hang out with us and stream and do cool shit. And who knows? Maybe some old faces will eventually return. We certainly have a new Switch.
We can tap in people for an episode or two. We've done deep dive stuff in the past, and we're finding ways of continuing to incorporate that into the show without it being as intensive as it has been for us. I think we might do some, especially based on the success of this whole Game of the Year thing. I think we might start incorporating some more list kind of content where we can just
get a little bit heavy
sit
on
back and bullshit.
I think lists are going to be coming in a little bit more for us, and
I think that'll be fun. I think that'll be great to just talk about like, what racing games do you like? What guns in video games do you like? We could find all sorts of bullshit like that, and continue to have fun podcasts. But we're still going to play video games too, and we'll tell you about new releases. We'll still have our monthly previews where we'll talk about all the new games that are coming out. Who knows? Maybe another Uncle Chop's Rocket Shop is going to just blow our doors off in January. That would be awesome.
There's some rumors out there, Chase, that the launch title for the Switch 2 is going to be a Mario Kart. And that would be a
good time for it.
That would be a great time for us to dust that off and have some fun with that and the community around the show. But you certainly got some stuff going on. If you want to follow along with all the cool shit that we do, one of the things that we changed this year on top of the format for our show, we are off Twitter for good reason. And we are focusing on Blue Skies and Threads and Instagram and all that.
Yeah, Blue Sky certainly has no issues these days.
What's going on? Is something happened there now?
Oh, they've got some moderation stuff that's going on, and people who are on the platform that maybe shouldn't be, and some things that are, I mean, they're not perfect either, but it's still way better than the bird site,
Yeah, social media, still garbage. But if you want to follow along with what we do, that's where we're going to be at. And you can do that right there on those links. You can also subscribe to our podcast everywhere. If you're watching us live, or if you're seeing a VOD on it, go check that stuff out. And if you're listening to us, tell more people, I guess, because we got some cool shit to tell you about. Chase, you have even cooler shit going on. What is happening with you?
I don't know if it's cooler, but I do have some pretty cool shit going on. One of those things is, I mentioned it a few times during this episode, I have a YouTube channel. It's called Chase K Plays, where I play through whatever fucking video game I want to. And and currently, I've been playing the Pokemon trading card game for the Game Boy Color, but with a Pokemon trading card game Neo, I think is the name of the hack. A ROM hack that patches over that and plays with all sorts of new Gen 2 Pokemon cards. And it's been awesome. It has been one of my favorite things I've done this year. It's a series I call I'm Just a Bill. And go check it out. The episode that will be airing by the time you listen to this will be the final episode of that. And I'll tell you, it was great. It was a good episode. So go check that out at Chase K Plays.
As to what's next?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I might have a couple of weeks where I just play some random stuff. Maybe I'll go back to Magic the Gathering Arena for a week or two, just as like a cool down kind of game, and then I'll find a longer series to come up with. But yeah, I've got some ideas, but nothing set in stone at the moment.
Awesome, man.
And then we mentioned Pierce Corshane, good friend of the show, and he is my co-pilot on a podcast I do called Pilot Program, where we watch the first episodes of every television show ever made. We recorded successfully our newest show last night as of this recording, and that was on Anthony Bourdain's A Cook's Tour, which was a show that he did on the Food Network before No Reservations, before Parts Unknown. Great conversation with Pierce. I'm still working on editing that. Hope to get it out before Christmas. might not be out until 2025. We'll see. But that episode should come out relatively soon. And that was a lot of fun. Go to shows.acast.com/pilot program and go check out all of our episodes, including that one.
Awesome. Chase, thank you for a hell of a year. It's been a blast. We're going to take a little time off. So if you're listening to this, know that Chase and I are hanging out, resting, and being with friends and family. We will be back live on the 1st of the year with a January preview. And I don't even know what to expect. I have no idea what's going to be on that list, but I can't wait to see
Dynasty Warriors Origins is the only video game in January.
There it is. Short and sweet. But we'll be back on the 1st. We might have a stream before that too, but we'll let you know. Take care. And Chase, thank you. This has been a lot of fun. Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.